Welcome, comic book fans, artists, writers, and collectors, to the 8th episode of the Panel Pod. Today we're joined by Tyler Kirkham. He's been working in the industry for over 20 years and is currently at the helm of his creator-owned title, Final Boss, published by Image Comics. Tyler talks to us about his beginnings at Top Cow, working in the offices with Mark Silvestri, finding a balanced workflow, and his upcoming one-shot starring the Masked Vigilante. Thanks again for listening, and you can support Tyler and his upcoming projects through the links in the description. Welcome to another episode of the Panel Pod. This is episode 8, and we have a very special guest. We have Tyler Kirkham here. He's at the helm of Final Boss, and I'm so excited to have you here. So right away, you've got a lot going on. You've got this release happening in April, this Final Boss tie-in, the Masked Vigilante. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Definitely been wanting to talk about it for sure because it's in the FOCs coming up. I believe on April 6th, I think, is the final day you can order that. But it's a one shot. It's a one shot tie-in for Final Boss. If you're reading Final Boss, the Masked Vigilante character shows up in issue 3, so like the first appearance of Masked Vigilante. And then she continues to be a crucial character throughout the whole series. Actually, like she'll play a critical role. And you'll see her a lot coming up, but she's always going to be like a mysterious character. You're gonna want to know more about her, and like what's her origin, and who is she? What is she doing, popping in and out of the issues? So I thought that she would be a great character to kind of dive into her history a little bit more, and give the readers just a little bit more context on who this mysterious character is without really revealing like what her purpose is in Final Boss. Just kind of hinting at a few more things and kind of basically giving the readers more, but not too much, because I still want to keep them on the edge of their seats and wanting to know more about this character for sure. So a one shot, just a one shot, and it comes out right after issue 5 of Final Boss, which wraps up the first story arc. So issue 1 through 5 will be the first volume of Final Boss. So you'll be able to get that in trade paperback format everywhere. Every bookstore, you can order it on Amazon through your comic shops. I'll have them on my website. And that also comes out in April as well. Do you have those dates by chance? I think it's
April 20th, I believe, is the release of the Final Boss tie-in. Yeah, it's the same day as the trade paperback collection,
cool.
Releasing those first 5 issues.
Sweet. Yep. So those will be coming out. So you'll be able to get your full Final Boss fix if you hit the shops that day, because you can get Masked Vigilante issue 1 and Final Boss volume 1 at your store, at your comic shop. So make sure that they got one ordered for you.
Absolutely. And Tyler, you've been doing a lot of work on other people's characters between Marvel and DC. How liberating is it for you to now be building your own world? And, with the Masked Vigilante, she's got such a cool design. I believe this is her, the Guardian Angel here. Is this?
Let's see. Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's the character.
How
like Masked Vigilante, bro. Like that's what she is. Finish the question and I'll dive into her.
Yeah. How liberating is it to now be in your own world and creating your own characters and building that world through multiple stories now?
Dude, so fulfilling, rewarding, and just fun. I love drawing Marvel and DC characters and these iconic characters like Superman and Batman and Wolverine and Spider-Man and all these, characters that everyone knows about. But there's something different when you are drawing your own characters. It's just a different feeling once you see, your comic on the stands and you get real feedback from people, about the story. It's more about like, oh my gosh, I love the story, so you're getting a little bit more than just I love your art on Green Lantern or whatever. You're actually getting feedback on something that you created, and that to me is probably the coolest thing, because I have written other things before. I've written other comics and children's books and different things like that, but Final Boss is I'm really doing almost all of it. I'm doing all the writing and the creating of the characters and all that stuff. And then I've got, help on the art and the coloring and everything like that. But it's just really rewarding to see the characters that I'm creating come to life, and having people tell me that they love them. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's going to be people that don't like your stuff, but for the most part, people seem to dig Final Boss. They seem to be into it. And I mean, I know not everything is for everyone, but I think for the most part, the feedback has been really, really positive.
I, for one, really enjoy Final Boss, and being a fan of comic books in general, you really capture that uh, energetic, dynamic, just over the top style that I think brings a lot of even young readers into the medium as well. And it's just nice to see that still being alive. And I guess what I really wanted to know, what came first? Was it Tommy Brazen? Was it Final Boss? Where did these ideas stem from?
So Final Boss is a story that's kind of been developing in my head for years, man, honestly. Um, it's it's everything that I loved growing up, basically. So it's kind of things that have inspired me throughout the years, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put that in a story, or I'm gonna put this in Final Boss. Like, as whenever I do Final Boss, I'm going to implement this and that. And it just slowly started taking shape. I was writing the first script on my phone.
Hmm.
Like, I already had a full plot layout, right? Like, I had a full plot layout where I need the story to go from start to finish, but I needed to put a script together for issue one so that I could slowly start working on that. And that's when I ended up doing the crowdfunding thing, um, where I actually finished issue one and then launched the Indiegogo. I never like to do a crowdfund unless I know I'm going to have it finished, complete. You know what I mean? Um, so I finished issue one, launched a Indiegogo on that, and got all the books and everything shipped out to everyone. Had all the cool rewards, T-shirts and bookmarks and stickers and all the fun stuff, and had a pretty good response. And I just kept developing Final Boss pretty slowly because it was just on the sidelines. My real bread and butter was doing covers, still is, um, which was kind of funding Final Boss. I was doing cover work for a bunch of different publishers, Marvel, DC, and every other one of them, and that was funding the creative process for Final Boss. So I was able to kind of do it a little slower than the normal process of a monthly book, but now that's catching up to me, and now I'm like, all right, I'm like, I got to develop this stuff like faster. So I know where I'm going, and luckily I'm really far ahead. I'm actually on like issue 11, man. So
Wow.
on the back end. So that doesn't mean that they're done or anything, but scripts are written, art's being worked on, some colors are happening, just kind of pre-production stuff is happening. And um, so we're kind of ahead, but I got to keep that pace in order to really continue this because I want Final Boss to be monthly for as long as people are reading it. Honestly, as long as people are enjoying it, I will continue to do issues. I know where the first story, real big plotline story arc needs to end, and then if people are still digging it, we'll jump back in and do some other cool stuff with it.
No, that's incredible that you're continuing and have these ideas to further the plot. And I love that there's just more to tell within this world. Okay, Future of Final Boss, you're now releasing on issue 5. So can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in this issue?
Yeah, so issue five is a big issue as far as storyline goes, and it is also the kind of the finale of the first story arc, first volume, right? So I wanted to end it on something really big. So you'll see Tommy kind of manifesting some really cool new powers that you haven't seen him do yet, and you'll also see some other really cool stuff from Mask Vigilante, as well as a big boss fight that's happening that starts in issue four with this character called Ritual Queen Ritual, basically, and she's kind of this witch queen. She is like the queen of this cannibal clan, pretty gross, right? And they're all wrapped up in that, and awesome action fight, but really cool. So kind of a little bit of an oversized issue compared to the last few,
Mhm.
and then also some cool things in the end of it. Like we've got like some a cover gallery, as well as a preview for Mass Vigilante coming up for people to see some interiors for that. And yeah, just a good like way to end that first volume, and then we'll have a month break where it'll go right into Mass Vigilante, which is obviously a final boss title, and then issue 6 will come out in May, or no, June, I believe. So yeah, so it'll be monthly with just Mass Vigilante, and then back to issue 6.
Earlier, I blanked, but I remembered exactly what I wanted to ask you. You said that the cover work was funding Final Boss. So now that you're saying it's kind of catching up to you, how do you balance this workflow between getting things done on time and, yeah, delivering everything when it needs to be done?
It's hard, man. I'm really feeling it right now. Like I just had this an international trip over to Dublin Comic Con, and anytime you leave to a convention, you get back home and you're like, oh my gosh, like you try to stay on top of emails and different things like that while you're gone, but man, it's hard to really stay on top of like deadlines and everything. And luckily, I got a lot of stuff done before I left, because a lot of projects that were coming up were for MegaCon releases, which is like next week.
Hmm.
So a lot of my heavy deadline stuff was luckily caught up on. And then I got a bunch of pages ready for my colorist for Final Boss. But I'm gonna script out or do the dialogue for like issue 8 of Final Boss on the plane, right? And I didn't get any of it done, man. Like I wasn't quite in the mindset for it, or it just didn't quite feel like the time. Like sometimes I'll just do a lot of that stuff on my phone, and I'm just like, I can kind of do the main plotting of stories easier that way.
Hmm.
But when I'm doing the dialogue and stuff for an issue, I need to be able to be on my computer so I can have the pages up here, and I'm plotting, I'm doing the dialogue here, so I can go back through the panel work and like make sure that the text that the characters are saying really matches up. A lot of writers do it that way. Like they'll actually wait for the artist to get um, the pages done, and then they'll go back in and do the dialogue for the characters to make sure that it looks natural, that it matches up with with the artwork and stuff like that, rather than trying to write the script and all the dialogue in the beginning, because then sometimes that can kind of like it doesn't feel as natural. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and where do you get this ability to write dialogue? You did mention that you wrote a little bit before, but you're mainly notably known for doing art. Does that come from some of the things that you grew up with? Some of the things that I noticed was like Indiana Jones, and then visually kind of like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. But I guess my question is the dialogue touches. Where does that stem from?
Honestly, man, it's just how I would talk probably. I really try not to get too deep into, I don't know, man, like creating some fictional character that would talk in a different way. Like I'm like, what would I say if I was him, right?
Hmm.
I mean, yes, there are the side characters, so I gotta do, or I do gotta create like other personalities. But when it comes to like Tommy, for example, I just think to myself, okay, if I was in this situation, what would I say? What would my internal dialogue be for the narration right here? Or what would I say to my friends or whatever the situation is? Or if I was like fighting someone, how would I talk trash, right? So I try to just keep it pretty fun and almost uh like a relatable to the regular person, right? Like the regular person who would enjoy Final Boss. I try to keep it in a sense of like, okay, maybe they can picture themselves saying it like that or talking like that or whatever. So that was kind of the way I was thinking about it, or the way I think about it when I'm writing the dialogue. But there are other characters and villains and bosses and stuff that I gotta create completely new personalities and stuff. So, and that's just fun. That's just fun for me to try to figure out. Honestly, like there's a French guy that I kind of had to look up some stuff on what some cool things he could say would be, and just yeah.
And the character designs, those are also really interesting. And you use the word fun. There's a character that's like a boar. So these anthropomorphic characters in this world. This is obviously an imaginary world, then you can do a lot with that too. So tell me about just the world and what more you want to explore with some of these strange looking characters.
Totally, man. Yeah. So he's talking about Warhog is his name.
Yeah.
Warhog. And he's a kind of a gangster, hog guy. Ninja Turtles is definitely one of my inspirations for Final Boss. Um, and I just love like those characters that are like that, like an animal. Like I've got like this lizard character coming up. And with Warhog, back his origin story, like he was, like over in the Pacific Islands or in Hawaii, or I can't remember what I wrote down about him, but he he used to breed like hogs and stuff like that, and he's got like a history with it, right? So when you go to this island and you go try to, so the whole purpose of Final Boss is there's this island where it was rediscovered by Tommy's grandfather in World War II, and on this island there's this ancient temple that dates back thousands of years, right? It looks kind of Greek or whatever, but it's not. It's older, but it has, there's these godlike characters, and on this island there is an ancient temple that's been there forever, and inside is a deity of like a god of, let's say, a god of war, or like a war god, or a god of fighting. And what they would do back in the day is they would pilgrimage to this island, and do sacrifices and bring items and try to like get the blessings and everything. And if you did get a blessing from this god, you'd gain powers. So imagine back in the day that stuff's happening, right? And now when Tommy's grandfather lands on it, he's shipwrecked on it during World War II. Him and his platoon kind of rediscover this, and that's where you see, like you say, like Indiana Jones stuff, because you're going back and forth between Tommy's grandfather back then and Tommy now. So what happens is when you come across this god character, you have the ability to fight it, like best it in battle, right? So if you can fight this thing and you come out alive, you're granted abilities, so you're gifted, or you can either get killed by it, obviously, or you can get cursed. So some of these characters that look really nasty and crazy, they've been cursed, right? So like Warhog, and you'll have these other characters. Yes, they come out with maybe different powers and different abilities, but they're not the same as they used to be, and their appearances changed. So they were once a human, and they wanted to do the trial of might, thing, and go into the temple and try to best this god, and they come out completely different.
That's incredible. And now with that creative freedom, you have to do these type of things. Working with Image Comics, do you just turn it into them and they're like, yeah, this is great? Or how does that process look?
Well, so issue 1 through 5 were completely done, right? When I submitted it to Image, because I had put issue 1 through 4 out independently, just creator owned, self-publishing, whether it was through Kickstarter or just on my website or Whatnot. I utilized Whatnot a lot to sell copies. So I was self-publishing Final Boss, and I was putting out maybe one copy a year, one issue a year. But when I got to issue 5, I had issue 5 completely done, and I built a PDF 1 through 5, and I was like, man, I really don't. I was about to do like a graphic novel, right? A trade paperback for myself. And I was like, I really don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do another crowdfund or another just self-publish it. I want to, I want this in more readers' hands. So I pitched it to Image, and luckily I heard back like really soon. And they dug it, man. And they just said, can we get this out in November? And I was like, absolutely. It's already ready to go. We just got to kind of redo some of the stuff to make it, branded as Image. And I had to produce some new covers and stuff because I wanted to have new covers on every issue, as well as be able to use some of the older ones, but do special finishes like spot foils and like virgin editions and stuff like that. So the people that backed the book back in the day didn't feel like they were getting gypped, or like,
Yeah.
like they bought something and they have to buy it again. There's new versions of every cover that was released back years ago. There's new editions.
Yeah, see, that's new to me. I was introduced to you off of Final Boss, and then, digging into your career, I was able to find that I had way more experience with your work, which is really cool, and the power of image nowadays.
Hmm.
Um, you started at Top Cow, I believe it was on The Gift. Now, tell me about your experience. That is in line with Image, if I'm correct. They're like under the same umbrella. Uh, how did that grant you, I guess, more access into the industry from starting there? You started really young.
Yeah, so The Gift was actually an independent book created by an author named Raven Gregory, and he found me through an editor that worked at Top Cow, right? So the Gift wasn't part of Top Cow. It eventually did get published by Image Comics though. But when I was working on it, it was just an indie book, and but the creator Raven, he hired an editor at Top Cow. Her name was Renee Geerlings. He hired her on the side as like kind of like a side job, right? And I kept submitting art to Top Cow as a kid, kind of coming up through in high school. And had a friend living in California, and my friend took my some of my samples right into the Top Cow office in Santa Monica, which was really cool. So I got an in that way, like I had my foot in the door. I just had to, so I had an editor's email and I could send her new artwork directly.
Mm.
So that helped out a ton. And I would send her stuff every few months, right? New pages. And I wasn't good enough to work at Top Cow, but she said, "Hey, I have this independent book. I want to see if the author likes the stuff." I'm like, "Awesome, I'm down for whatever, right?" Because at the time, the only the only artwork I was doing some stuff for my local newspaper. Like I actually got hired on to do artwork for this teenage section in my local newspaper, which was cool. I was actually paid. It was paid artwork, which was really fun. But I wanted to do comics, and the guy liked it. Raven liked the art, and he said, "Hey, can you start doing this?" I was working at Sam's Club at the time, and for a little while I was trying to juggle both because I didn't know if the comic thing was going to work out. So I started working on The Gift at night and started slowly turning in pages for The Gift. And then Top Cow at one point was like, "Hey, you're getting pretty good. I've done a few issues of The Gift at this point," and they invited me to come out and do kind of like a come stay for a couple weeks, meet Silvestri, meet the other artists in there, like whoever's in there at the time, Finch or Michael Turner, whoever's there. Joe Benitez. And so I did. I came out for a couple of weeks and stayed kind of in their intern house. And because they do these talent searches, right? Top Guy does talent hunts and stuff all the time. So they have an intern house. And stayed out there for a couple of weeks, met everyone, had a great experience. I'm just working on The Gift like there in-house in the studio. And Mark Silvestri's there kind of like giving me some pointers and stuff. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is so awesome. This isn't even a Top Cow project, but he's like, "Hey kid, like do this and that better." And I really absorbed everything that he said. And at the end of that couple of weeks, they were like, "Hey, if you can move out to LA, you can keep coming in. You can just come into the studio. You can work on The Gift. You can learn, from the other artists, hang out." And I was like, "Man, holy crap, like I'm from Utah, so I'm like, I don't know, 20 or whatever at the time." And I'm like, "Mom, Dad, I need to move to California." So that was interesting for sure. But it was such a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I did move. I moved out there, lived out there for a couple of years. And within the first, I want to say like, I don't know, man, maybe 4 months, I I got my first gig at Top Cow, and that was Legacy of Kain, like Soul Reaver. Remember Legacy of Kain?
Yeah,
They had the license to do the comic for that, and they gave it to me. And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
it was crazy.
So not only am I doing like my first real comic, really, like my first, because The Gift hadn't really been, it was still independent at the time. But now I'm working on like a video game franchise.
Mm.
And so I did a one shot of that, and then shortly after that, I got Strike Force, and then I just kept doing stuff. Like I just tried to be monthly. I tried to work a lot and just really impress the editors with my timeliness. That's really what got me more work, honestly, was like me being on time. I would go in the day and work where all the editors and production people were there, but then I'd come back in at night and work with like Silvestri and the other artists, and because that's when they all came in.
So you took
Yeah.
that Kobe Bryant approach of just like showing up and being there
Grinding, man,
and grinding.
grinding for a while. Yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and then I felt like I could move back home to Utah. 'Cause I loved it there. I loved it there. Like I got married to my wife, and I loved it there, and we made friends and stuff. But it was so expensive,
Hmm.
and we could build a house like in Utah at the time, right? Like I was like, man.
Yeah.
And I had my family and friends and stuff back home, and I missed them. And and with comics, you can work from anywhere. So
Yeah, that's the coolest part about them.
it just
Uh,
made sense.
After that, it's you worked on a little bit of some crossovers. There was Batman, there's a Witchblade and Darkness, I believe. I want to know what was the moment, I guess when they invited you into the offices is probably the moment where you're like, I'm in, I'm making comics. But was it when you were drawing Superman or Batman where you're like, oh man, I'm finally really, really doing what I want to do?
When they asked me to do Superman, The Darkness, I was like, holy crap! Like I can't believe they're asking me to do that. Because it's like DC characters, and Top Cow had this deal with Image at the or with DC at the time, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy! Like I can't believe I'm actually drawing Superman. And I remember calling home to some friends. I was like, guess what? I just got offered. This is nuts. Like, I think I'm doing it, guys. And because some high school buddies and stuff wanted to do comics as well growing up, and I would always share everything that I was doing with them. And and then after that, yeah, I got like multiple crossover things, man. I got like the Darkness Wolverine. I got like this Top Cow Marvel fusion
And
thing.
Transformers too, am I correct?
Yeah, Transformers, New Avengers. Because DC had a deal with Top Cow early on, and then later on, Marvel had a deal with Top Cow. And really, it's because they probably wanted Silvestri to work on their characters, but the rest of us got roped into it and got gigs because of it as well. So I got like a couple issues of Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Fantastic Four, those crossovers, the New Avengers, Transformers, and the Thunderbolts thing, the Marvel Top Cow Fusion project, and just fun stuff like that. Just a lot of fun, cool kind of mini series, and then yeah, after that, I had I've kind of been talking to DC, been approached a few times at conventions and stuff, and but I didn't. I just pictured myself being at Top Cow, man. I was like, I'm gonna stay here and start doing my own creator-owned stuff, and like I remember the day that I told them that I was gonna go work at DC. It was like, hey, Tyler, I thought we want to do some creator-owned stuff with you. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I need to do this because Green Lantern was so big. Everyone loved Green Lantern at the time. And it was like if you'd go to a convention, one in every three people would have a Green Lantern shirt on, I feel. Like everyone loved Green Lantern at the time, man. It was really, Jeff Johns blew the character up, and it was just I was like, man, I'm getting offered a Green Lantern project. This is crazy. And so I had to do it. I worked out a deal, like I signed an exclusive contract with DC, and they allowed me to bring my colorist and my inker.
Wow,
And I was like, man, this is awesome.
that is
So they
really, really cool.
put me right into Green Lantern Corps, and um, I just tried my absolute hardest to kind of, because a lot of DC readers had no idea who I was. So I was like, I need to really try some new fun techniques and new fun stuff here to kind of make a name for myself, because there's all these big name creators doing Green Lantern stuff, and I'm kind of pretty new here to this.
Would that
So
explain your, I would say, artistic evolution working on Green Lantern? Because there's like a point, I think, like when you started working on Green Lantern, I noticed just a huge leap in just like how you approached the page when you worked on Green Lantern. So would you attribute that to, oh my gosh, I have Green Lantern?
100%, man. When I started at DC, I really told myself I need to take as much time on every page as possible. I need to try my hardest on everything and really just try to do some new fun stuff, right? If I get this team that I'm asking for, I need to really take advantage of them. So I got the inker I wanted, like I said, the colorist I wanted. I'm like, now's the time to really, really, really kind of stretch my creative muscle or whatever, right? I need to really have some fun, and um, obviously there's deadlines on everything though as well, so there's that. But I think it was that. Not only that, it was just a new universe, new characters, and just a different feeling. I think because I was exclusive with DC with the Marvel stuff. It was kind of just like they would give me random projects here and there.
Hmm.
But I felt like, all right, man, they're signing me to an exclusive agreement. I really need to give it my all, and I want to have, I want people to notice this that aren't familiar with my work, because this was my real first. Well, I guess I could say the Ultimate Fantastic Four run. I guess was kind of a decent little run on a established book. Um,
Yeah, and a lot of people were reading that too.
and it was an Ultimate title as well, so people were digging the Ultimate stuff. Um, but I just felt, I don't know, I felt like I had to up my game for some reason, and I'm glad I did. I put more effort into it than I was, I think, which is, and I try to put maximum effort into everything now, but um, sometimes life kind of catches up, and you have deadlines, man. I mean, when you do too many conventions and stuff, or you've got other things going on, especially when you have like young kids, it is hard sometimes to maintain the quality that you want. So that's the thing with comics, man, is it's always like kind of a give and take. Like, do I do a monthly book and know that I have to sacrifice a little bit here and there, or do I not produce as much work but have better quality work? It's always going to be one or the other, really, with
It's that
comics, I think.
Sisyphus battle, rolling the boulder up the hill
Yep.
constantly.
Yep.
And from there, you worked on Deathstroke. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about Deathstroke because I am younger, but I can't remember a time that Deathstroke looked as detailed or as intimidating than he has when you worked on him. Is there anything that influenced that? Were you one of the first people to kind of beef him up that way?
Well, obviously, like I jumped into Deathstroke right after Tony Daniel, and he had already kind of established like a really badass looking Deathstroke, I think. Um, I just put a little bit more of my flair on it, so I probably did make him a little bit bulkier, changed a few elements in the armor, and just had fun with the character. I love masked characters like that. I mean, Deadpool, Deathstroke, just masked vigilante. I just like that
Yeah.
type of character. Um, and that was another one of those things where I was like, man, I'm having so much fun. And when I was working on Deathstroke, I was also inking myself. So shortly after that, when I was working on Teen Titans, I had decided to try to ink my own stuff. And it wasn't quite ready then when I started Teen Titans, but I slowly started evolving as like being able to ink my own stuff and feeling comfortable with it and feeling that I could do it in a timely manner. So the whole Deathstroke run, that's all penciled and inked by me,
Wow.
which is another reason why it kind of feels a little bit different than even the Green Lantern stuff, because the Green Lantern stuff was all inked by some other inkers. So, but yeah, I mean it was another one of those just like new projects. I'm having a ton of fun. I can see myself doing Deathstroke for years. Like let's just do this, and then what happened was Rebirth happened. Remember that?
Yes.
And I would have been comfortable just going right back into Deathstroke, but they wanted me to do Superman.
Hmm.
with Dan Jurgens and stuff, which I was like, man, I can't turn that down. That's awesome. So I did the Superman stuff for a little while there.
And then you kind of focused on covers a little bit before you hopped back into Final Boss. What would you say? It was hard for me to pinpoint exactly who influenced you, but you do have these very figure focused covers and style that you have where you really focus on the muscle and just how the character looks. Where does that come from? Who are some of the artists that influenced you?
Yeah, definitely Sylvester is and was a huge influence for sure. Michael Turner was, you know, rest in peace, man. Huge influence. All the Image guys, man, Jim Lee, um, McFarlane. But my first big influence was Mark Texeira
Hmm.
when he was doing Wolverine, and I loved his take on Wolverine. But other influences definitely like Del Keown, Stephen Platt, Joe Madureira. Um, I was never too big into like the ultra realistic type styles. Definitely more of an early image type of guy, and that's you can tell, from Final Boss. I think I just like that impactful storytelling and big panels and a lot of action. So
Yeah, that's incredible. I want to know because your artwork is everywhere. We talked a little bit before the podcast about a poster that I had in my dorm room that everybody loved. Tell me about a time where you saw your artwork out in public or unexpectedly.
yeah, I mean, I'll see it on shirts and stuff every once in a while. Um, Mainly because I get tagged in stuff like, oh, I just found this, Spider-Man shirt at Walmart, or I just found this hat at Spencer Gifts or Hot Topic or whatever, or Hobby Lobby. They'll sell posters and canvases and stuff like that. Um, Randomly, I'll see them in even like in other countries, man.
Wow, that's so
So
cool.
I think it's just because once the artwork gets used, people are allowed to use, well, not allowed, but I'm sure they're licensed things that they work out with Marvel. But I mean, of course you'll see stuff that shouldn't be. Like I've seen people print their own shirts,
Right.
and I'm like, they want me to sign it, but you can tell it was like off of a JPEG or something.
No, that's
But
fine.
it's cool. It's what was really cool is going over to Dublin this past week and walking into Forbidden Planet
Hmm.
Comics and finding Final Boss on the shelf. That's what's cool.
No, that's incredible. How was your time in Dublin?
Awesome. Yeah, my first time. So Dublin Comic Con was great. Little 2 day show out there, and it was a little cold and windy, but definitely a great experience. Loved it, man. Had to go out and check out the town, and went to see some castles and stuff. I loved it, man. I'm into all that stuff.
Really cool. I have a couple more questions. I don't want to hold you too much
Sure.
longer. What's something that you would tell your younger self at Top Cow?
Try your hardest on everything, man. Just try your hardest. Never phone it in. And just draw every day, even if you don't need to. Just continue practicing your craft, and probably start trying to create stories early on. You know, because I don't know. Maybe if I would have had an amazing story back then, I could have pitched it earlier and had something cool going on. But um, yeah, just continuously create and just really put maximum effort into stuff for sure.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure a lot of up and coming artists and writers listening would really appreciate that advice too. I have one last question for you, okay?
Right?
Final Boss, I know that when creators talk about their work being adapted, they're either, ugh, get that away from me, or they're like, yes, I want it to be adapted. What's your case for Final Boss?
I definitely want more from it than just comics. And in fact, I'm actively pursuing stuff. I'm actively pursuing video game stuff.
Hmm.
You know, I would be down for cartoons or movies or toys, everything, man. There's some cool things happening, like just the hint of things potentially happening right now, which is exciting. So, but nothing you'll hear about anytime soon, but there's some things in the background happening in other mediums. So
If you were to fan cast or even pick a voice for Tommy Brazen, I'm sure you hear it in your head. Who would be the voice?
oh, I sent Final Boss to Joe Magliano.
Yeah,
Um,
Deathstroke.
Deathstroke, yeah, because at one point he followed me on Instagram because I think he was just following Deathstroke creators because he was probably diving into all the Deathstroke material.
Hmm.
And and I had a couple words with him online, like just hey, good to meet, dude, thank you for whatever, follow me, blah blah blah. And then later on, he actually responded to, which was really cool. So later on, I actually was like, hey man, I'd love to send you. So I sent him Final Boss, and I thought he'd be awesome as the character, uh, voice and everything. Um, Recently I've been I don't know, I think like a Josh Hartnett would be pretty good. Like I watched that movie with him recently on the
Yeah, he's like pretty popular right now too.
I like him a lot, man. I've always liked him anyways. Jake Gyllenhaal would be dope as Tommy, I think. There was a couple others that I was thinking of recently. It was funny, like at Dublin Comic Con, I got to hang out with Sir Duncan, like the guy from Night of the
No.
Seven Kingdoms.
No, that's so cool.
And I gave him a copy of Final Boss. Like, it was like Sunday night, and we were just hanging out. And he's like, "Oh, I love comics," and he was really cool, really cool. And he opened it up. He's like, "Oh man, like this is awesome." Whatever, blah blah. And I was like, "Shit, man, I'm gonna keep in contact with this guy."
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really cool. He's got a breakout role right now, so that's pretty
Mhm.
awesome. Uh,
Totally.
Tyler, where can we find you next? You're going to be at MegaCon?
MegaCon coming up, man, next week. And then after that, I got a Calgary Fan Expo. Amazing Las Vegas, San Diego, probably, hopefully. Um, and then a few other shows throughout the year, like Terrificon. What else, man? I'm sure there'll be other stuff. But for right now, though, I've got the CGC signing event going on, where they're accepting submissions right now for my books. So if you have any Tyler Kirkham books, CGC, get them to CGC right now. They're accepting all books right now for signing. I'll be doing a live signing out there in July or end of June. So now's the time to get those in. Yeah.
Incredible. Tyler, I want to thank you so much for joining this episode of the Panel Pod. You can pick up Final Boss at your local comic book shop. You could support Tyler on his Instagram, on his website. I'm going to link everything in the description. Final Boss is definitely a read that you need in your collection. So, Tyler, thank you again so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. See you around.